We're standing outside of Joe Bob's Elite Fight Club, the home of Pro Wrestling eKlipse in 2009. The one bathroom at Pro Wrestling eKlipse there on your right was shared between fans and wrestlers. See, that door takes you from the outside to the ring entrance, basically. The ceiling very low. If a wrestler would stand on the top rope, would oftentimes have problems not hitting the ceiling, and oftentimes use those I-beams on top as part of the match. To the far right was the addition that Joe Bob planned to put an actual locker room in the Fight Club. That never really panned out, as the place was shut down for, well, for what people say is illegal fighting without a license. During the summer, these garage doors would be opened up to allow air to flow through the building, as it's Florida, and in the summer it'd be 100, 110 degrees in a tin building, which wasn't very comfortable for the average wrestling fan. We're about to put together a little documentary on the history of Pro Wrestling eKlipse.
eKlipse was an idea that me and Martin came up with a couple years ago. He had stopped running NFW shows, which is kind of a little backyard thing that he was running with Joe Bob years ago here in Zephyr Hills when they were still on I guess that's 301 out there. And you know, we decided we're going to run a wrestling company. I came up with the idea for eKlipse, which would be more like a Japanese type company, something akin to Hustle, something like that. And we got the opportunity when a week before Christmas, Joe Bob came up to us and you know, asked us to start running shows. We really weren't prepared, didn't have any money in our pockets, and just started putting this wrestling show together on the fly. The booking was kind of done on a team basis then, you know. Me and Martin would sit down and just really look at the workers we had available, who we thought were coming out, and eKlipse, like I said, and PWE, like everybody likes to call that. Martin likes to call it that, but the original idea was it was just eKlipse. I'm a big fan of Japanese wrestling, and so like I was watching a lot of Hustle and Dragon Gate and stuff like that, and I loved how they just had these one-name promotions, you know what I mean, and or like Chikara even. And so I was like, what if we just called it eKlipse?
Louis Matos came to me with the name eKlipse quite early on, and it was something we drawed around. I'd actually played around with the name No Authority Wrestling for a long time. George knows that from back in like the old New School Wrestling days, and that was what I was going to get behind. But then Louis kept pitching the eKlipse idea to me, so I just kind of ran with it. Originally, it was actually called eKlipse. We had no pro wrestling or eKlipse Pro Wrestling or anything like that, and it was actually thanks to guys like you, Snowman, that kept calling it the PWE, that it just kind of evolved into actually have call letters. And I was always running around calling it Pro Wrestling eKlipse, just so people didn't, you know, confuse it with gum or cars or whatever else is named eKlipse. And I guess it just stuck. People started saying PWE, people started chanting it, the boys started calling it, and after a while I just kind of like threw my hands in the air and said, what the fuck, it's Pro Wrestling eKlipse, whatever. You know, again, I just think that we caught a bad rap, you know, but I think we did a lot of things really right, and we showed that with hard work, with the right people behind you, you can do anything you want in this business. That was an idea we had been talking about for a little bit. Again, I love Japanese wrestling, and I wanted to do something that was either based on age limits, kind of like they do in Japan with like the Young Lion stuff, or something that just you know, totally defied conventions on like lightweight wrestling, you know. Obviously I'm not a lightweight per se, but you'd see me competing up there, and it was the kind of wrestling that we were all watching at the time. You know, we were watching stuff from Jersey, and there were these bigger guys doing these littler guy things, and so we decided, what if there was a competitive branch where, you know, even these bigger guys can go out and kind of do it, kind of like the X Division, you know. Like, I guess, was a hybrid. It was a influx of different styles of wrestling that a lot of people try to ignore. The older school guys like to kayfabe these things, but to me it was more the idea of, I didn't want it to have gimmicks. I didn't want people to come and say, like, oh, you know, did you see whenever this so-and-so backstabbed this guy that won the hybrid title? We wanted really clean-cut matches. We wanted matches that fans who enjoyed the Japanese style, the ROH style, the Mexican style, and these different styles to be able to come in and watch these, you know, a hybrid of styles mixed together. And that's kind of the concept behind that title was to have a cruiserweight-ish title that was based on wrestling skill alone.
Yeah, it was Florida's true X Division title at the time. It was just guys go out there, do your spots, land on your head, and have fun with it.
I love the concept of the hybrid title, and some of the matches that came out of it were, the fans loved them. I wasn't a big fan of some of it because I think the work looked too anticipated.
it gave too much. Every week there's a scramble match. It took away from it. You want to save those type of stuff for like special occasions. But like the athletes are great. But like I don't know, like I said, like I'm more of the storytelling type. I like how a match progresses instead of the bang 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 bang. But I'm not trying to downgrade anybody. They're great athletes. I just wasn't a huge fan of the hybrid.
And that's what everyone did. Martin and Lewis came to me and said, we want you to be the first champ because you're considered a legitimate cruiserweight here in the state of Florida, and we don't want to just put it on someone and people are like, well, who's that? And that helped really put me over and get me in better graces. The first match that they had for the hybrid title was me, Louis Matos, Corvus Fear from Jersey All-Pro, and a buddy of his who came down from Jersey. And I went over. The funniest part is I don't remember the match because I did a suicide dive and Louis missed me and I went headfirst into a ladder. Supposedly I popped up, match went completely smooth. I get in the back and I'm like, okay, so I don't know what happened. But from there on, me, Louis, Kennedy, Jason Sane, Josh, Jude McKenzie, all these guys came up and stepped up to show their hybrid. Even Bobby Fonta, Nui Lee, Jarrell Clark, Gus Money, all these guys came out just to show that they could do different types of matches. Bobby got thrown in a four-way with me, Nui, and Jarrell, and he's like, ugh. It was like deer in the headlights because it's a different match for him, but he held his own, went out there and had fun. Nui Lee was starting to come out regularly, who's probably the best cruiserweight in the state of Florida. And I'll touch on the hybrid scramble match that people jerk off to. It was a spot fest. It was bing, bang, boom. It was a car crash in a ring. Everyone went out there and had a blast. And when putting the match together, I was like, no, screw that. Guys, we're the main event. We're going to have a lot of time to do stuff. We've all wrestled each other, so why don't we just go out there and wrestle? And then when we need to have our stuff put together, that's where we'll put it together. So like the dive sequence where Josh like jumps off of two people's backs and the end sequence where everyone's hitting crazy finishes, that's pretty much the only part of the match that we went through in the back. The rest of the match though was us wrestling. And that's something a lot of people don't realize because I thought at that point that it would make the match look better. Because then you don't have people being like, oh, well, that whole match looked choreographed. No, there's points in that match where there's just solid wrestling and then people doing their spots and stuff like that. But it wasn't one of those matches that people were like, oh, that's just a train wreck.
And that's another thing, like the bloodbath, it's kind of become legendary, and whether people think it should or not is irrelevant because it's important to the Central Florida wrestling scene, or important to the wrestling scene, period,
It just started off as a regular tag match, between the gangsters, and, things got fired up, and, we just started going at each other's throats each and every single month out in Ruskin. And then all of a sudden, PWE comes along. They decide, okay, they need a tag team to come in here and challenge the gangsters. And
naturally, you agree with the choosing tag team.
Of course, So why not the James boys? They got that Southern boy look, they want to get a little bit of a racist little feud going on here. So we said, sure, why not?
And I don't give a damn about this Afro Squad crap no more, right? You stop wearing this damn fro. Because all you're doing is representing them. You want to start doing something right, you represent the James boys. You get some pomade and put that in your hair and slick it back, Hoss. Get a cowboy hat. Get some chaps. Get a vest.
Get you a nice belt buckle.
Stop being the fried chicken and the watermelon. It ain't like we're really racist at all.
So I guess that just proves that black people will not excel in professional wrestling. You think about it. You see all the WWF champions or WWE champions, and most of them have been white.
It's just, we want to build it up, We want to give the people what they liked. And
people like controversy.
That's right. So what we do, we cut the promo. Well, actually, Luke cut the promo, and I was just there like, wow, we just made this really racist.
Nobody knew what I was going to say. That caused a lot of controversy.
Yeah. Me, my brother, and the James boys. Well, the James boys, great tag team. it was something that we couldn't, like, it was very exciting as far as the different matches, and we just kept going out there week after week, putting on something new. It was never the same match. You never got to see the same match. James Boy is very old school. I like to think of myself as somewhere in the middle, as old school and new school. My brother just new school, and it was just very interesting of the different things we got to do.
That was a really good feud actually for both of them to get their names out, because I don't know, it was that they clicked because the Gangsters have that new school mentality and the James Boys have that old school mentality, and it seemed to click very well.
Okay, so why did that feud end early?
The best of 7 feud ended early due to bad booking. When a lot of these Believe guys came and the MSL came, it turned into a lot of people wanted to get over, and they wanted the matches they wanted, so they had to cut our feud short so they can add these other people in. And that's why the best of 7. This is why I believe the best of 7 ended early.
From a fan's perspective, I would have had to guess that you came up with the idea of doing the flaming table. So that perplexes me that, somebody else says, hey, you're going to go through a flaming table tonight. What were the Gangsters' thought on that? Who went through it with you? Tell a little bit about that.
It was the brought-in Gangster for the third member.
Ron Cage.
Ron Cage, good guy. He did fit the gimmick right, being our Gangster.
He got pushed into it too fast.
Yeah, I think that's probably why they decided to put him through the flaming table besides one of the original Gangsters. Just throw one of the James Boys, and I could see Spit and Eddie over there laughing. Let's put him through Ron. Okay.
That was Martin's idea.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't a bad idea at all.
Fans liked it.
Yeah, they liked it. We walked in there one night and decided, I guess they decided they're going to build, the feud up with us. And they're like, well, you're going through a table tonight. I didn't know if they're just talking about Luke or me or both of us, It's going to be a flaming table. And it somehow worked into I was going to go through it, I was a little bit nervous, never did it before at all, So, I said, okay, I guess I'll do it. Let's just say I said a lot of prayers that night. Probably went out there and did, because I was scared shitless right before I, went through that table. And
you're ready to run to the cage.
Actually, it didn't hurt quite as bad as what it seemed. It looked like it hurt like hell, but it was
I think they were scared for me to go through because I have so much. Might burn something up.
That must have been it,
Against the fire code or something.
I'm a bald guy, I ain't got much hair, but it was all right.
Well, yeah, I guess watching it, and I was the closest person in front of you because most people went out the back and I was trying to get video of it. It seemed, you looked like you had a crazy look on your face, and that might have been fear, that might have been just adrenaline.
When I said it on there, it was adrenaline, man. Right before we went through, I just felt like my heart stopped. And as soon as it hit, it burned. I ain't gonna lie, it burned.
Then you see me flopping like a fish.
Yeah, I was flopping because it was burning. I had to flop around, to try to get it cool. And then I laid there for the longest time, That wasn't just me, selling or whatever. That was me, like, oh my God.
Well, see, the bad thing about that match is it took away from the finish of them winning the titles from us, because I'm the one that took the finish. I'm the one that got beat.
The reason I started going to Pro Wrestling eKlipse, I had heard about the Irish bloodbath. In fact, Rob and FCW Andy and Rico, a couple guys who regularly were Florida Championship Wrestling fans, went out to Pro Wrestling eKlipse, took photos, put them on the internet, and I saw those photos and I talked to those guys and they were blown away with Simon Says versus Michael O'Toole. They said they had never seen anything so gruesome, so bloody. Rico talked up the fact that it was just insane at Pro Wrestling eKlipse. He said that they were really good folks. They let Andy get in the ring and take pictures and stuff. And I was sold. I thought, this is what I want to see. I want to see what's going on at Pro Wrestling eKlipse. So I took my video up there and I watched the next show. And it was insane. It was crazy. The next week, Simon Says his girlfriend got in the ring and everyone was talking about, oh, these guys really hate each other. There's gonna be some serious paybacks. There's gonna be a receipt for what Simon did for Michael O'Toole, and I didn't want to miss it. What were your thoughts on the feud between Simon Says and Michael O'Toole?
I thought it was gold. Like, I mean, you know, those two guys, you know, they laid into each other. They hated each other, which I thought, you know, it makes for entertaining fights, you know, and the crowd, you know, loved it. You know, the boys loved it. I mean, that was one of the first times the boys would be running around to the front to watch the matches. And, you know, the bloodbath, you know, that, you know, made, you know, Central Florida wrestling history, I'm going to say. You know, people still talk about that.
After the bloodbath, they just started going from there, and their styles just clicked.
The funny thing behind that is that was set up from a previous match. It was me against Biff against O'Toole in a triple threat, just a normal match. And actually, the day of that show, me and my significant other got into a huge fight, and Biff and I actually were drinking backstage, and I got a little lit before the show, and I went out there and took the microphone and just started talking, and I mentioned the fact that she left and how pissed off I was. And after the match, Biff won, and O'Toole and I got into it. I kind of gave him the clothesline and left him laying. And since I had mentioned the fact that I was emotionally distraught about Laura leaving, Martin liked that idea of me kind of snapping a little bit because I pitched it to him and he liked it. So the next show, we were supposed to be me and O'Toole one-on-one, and I proposed the fact that the match never starts. I beat him up with a chair, and to kind of put over the edge the fact that I was crazy, he cut himself, and he cut himself a little too deep. So that, along with the fact that I was blitzing them with the chairs, I was swinging that chair for the fences, resulted in all the blood. And once again, we had been drinking backstage, so him drinking didn't really help how thin his blood was. So we went at it, and the match was only like, I think 10 minutes tops. But it was so bad that there was puddles forming in the ring, and every time O'Toole went down, the blood was splattering into the front row.
10 chair shots that O'Toole kept getting up, taking it.
13 stitches.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. There was blood everywhere.
Bloodbath was a complete accident. When I showed up there that night, this is the second time I actually hung out with Simon, and he's like, he just wants to do something brutal, something that people nobody expected that much blood.
I took my hand and dipped it in the puddle of blood and rubbed it on my chest, and I rubbed it on his face and smeared it on my face. So yeah, the very next day people were talking about it, so it's not something that was too planned.
I do credit what success I've had in the last year to PWE, the bloodbath at least, because I believe that's gotten me looked at a lot more, got me a couple more bookings. But I don't think I'd do it again.
That word describes it best. Bloodbath. It was what it was. It was supposed to be entertaining, and it got, I think, a bit out of control. It was a good feud in my eyes, but it did get to be quite a bloody mess.
It was definitely brutal. It was definitely harsh. I disagreed with them doing that. Not because I don't think it would have gotten over. It definitely did, and a lot of people talk about it. The reason why I disagreed with it was the circumstances behind it.
Ben, how was Laura involved in the next match? Because I have some real good video footage that I can upload with that.
We actually patched things up a couple days later, but since the damage had been done, no pun intended, we decided to go ahead and keep me psychopathic, I guess is the word I'm looking for, like real aggressive and attacking O'Toole. And eventually we had the rematch, which was supposed to be me and him one-on-one. We started off the same way, where I went to sneak attack him with a chair, but he saw me He threw me into the crowd, and we're just beating the hell out of each other. And at the end, I wanted me to set up, like I was gonna break O'Toole's neck with 2 chairs. And we had Laura come out and stop me, talk reason into me. And I grabbed her, threw her into the corner. O'Toole came and charged me, but I stepped aside. So he stopped, I charged him, and he knocked me down. And as he was helping her out of the ring, I had Shooter smack O'Toole in the head with a chair as he was helping Laura to the floor. But the thing is, Shooter swung too close, so he almost knocked Laura out with the chair. And you can see it on the shot of the week. I actually think it was the very first shot of the week that I was in, because that was also the match where O'Toole gave me the sidewalk slam into the open chair, which that's one of the spots in that match people talk about the most, because I have really bad back problems, so everyone backstage was cringing. And the funny thing is, it's like the little backstage access for you guys. Laura was actually watching the curtain the whole time, and Club 86 and Leon Scott were back there. And every time I took anything, every time O'Toole hit me with the chair, she would like whimper and freak out. And they were telling me afterwards that they were like, "Oh, she can't watch. She can't watch. She's gonna pass out." So she almost didn't make it through the curtain at the end because she was shaking so much. And yeah, her mom didn't appreciate that too much, but she was excited to be in there. I took care of her. I think at one point they were talking about they wanted me to hit her with a clothesline or something, but we just did less is more. I just chucked her into the corner and reared back like I was in the hitter, but O'Toole made the save.
I don't think either of those guys got paid for what they did, and seeing what O'Toole and what happened with Simon O'Toole, and seeing how much blood he lost, to do that for free, at least in my opinion, is stupid.
It really felt like cementing my spot, but not exactly where I wanted to be, because people more pictured the hardcore craziness, which is not really what I do. I can work it if you need me to, but not a big fan. But it happened so fast. Like going back and watching the 5-minute tape, it didn't feel like it was 5 minutes. Some points it felt forever. If you watch the tape closely enough, you can watch me telling Martin to cut.
You were the ultra-violent champion.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Being the champion, what that meant and what those matches were like?
Well, being the ultra-violent champion was real big for me, because I have always liked the hardcore scene, and being the first, not the first champion, but for the first time in Florida, I got to be an ultra-violent or hardcore champion. So it was real exciting for me.
Though the basic idea was to give it like CZW kind of feel, I guess, but at the same time not make it all about blood and guts. We really wanted to kind of touch on the fact that it would be the title to kind of cringe at, like ultra-violent titles coming, you're going to have to, we'd actually make it, disclaimers for people with children, you might want to leave, it might be blood, there might be this, might be that, and it really was, all out.
Well, the ultra-violent was very, it was very new, as far as it wasn't just hardcore, it was hard hitting, just a strong style. It wasn't really just about weapons and stuff, like it was just a strong style match.
In regards to the ultra-violent title, there's a lot of controversy. Martin really wanted the title, and he thought we had the guys to work the style. And there were a few guys. But that first match, I kind of felt like it was a title that could kind of go either way. And after like the performance of that first match, Dagan Lee had gotten hurt that match, and we were supposed to put the strap on him. Pretty Fly had won the title, and he was supposed to be leaving in a couple of weeks. There was a kid who came down from Jersey who worked for it. It was just kind of god-awful, and that match was just like a clusterfuck from beginning to end. And I said, they really tried to sell me on this idea of people want to see hardcore wrestling. People want to see people die, and they want to see it all the time, every week, And I really wasn't sold on the idea, but I said, sure, if we can get something like what CZW does to kind of like broaden our horizons, sure, I'm cool with it, I'm game. And then we put it on Mandrake, who's known as a hardcore wrestling, and this is probably more our fault than his, but he was never in hardcore matches, like we didn't have the money to buy the gimmicks for it.
What's funny, and seeing as they're right there, is that the tag team titles sort of outshine the ultra-violent title in some ways, because the James Boys and the Gangsters overtook the idea of, hey, go out there and have fun and be crazy, and then they would destroy each other.
Can you tell about your matches as the Ultraviolet champion?
Oh yeah, I had some pretty good matches against Mandrake.
Mandrake was actually very proud of that title. I know, towards the end of his run there, he wasn't very happy. However, he did enjoy having that title. I think the Ultraviolet title was different. This wasn't just your regular hardcore. It was a little different.
We only had, I believe it was 2 or 3 matches, but I mean, they were good. I mean, it wasn't, I think that given a better environment to do it in, he probably would have shown a little bit better, or done a little bit better in it. It really wasn't, there really wasn't many hardcore weapons or toys to use. The ring was horrible. At that point, as a matter of fact, I used to joke about it. Screw it, let's not do anything in the ring. Let's just do it all on the floor because it was easier on our bodies. To be honest, I mean, not knowing whether or not we were going to get paid, I'm not going to sit there and kill myself for free. I'm not going to sit there and kill myself for $5. It just, and I kind of tried conveying that to Eddie. It's like, look, not that we're not going to give 110%. But we're not going to sit here and do things that are dangerous, when we're working 3-4 shows a week for $5.
We weren't paying him enough to go out there and gig and die all the time, and it kind of like fell by the wayside to me. So there was some ruffling in the booking, and Martin needed to take some personal time off, so I took over booking full time. And one of the decisions I had made was that we were going to combine the hardcore, or the Ultraviolet title, and the world title. Biff was supposed to work Michael Patrick that night, and Mike Patrick just took off 10-15 minutes before his match, storming off about the finish. And so I decided, well, we have Eddie Brock and we don't have Jay Brock, so let's put Eddie in the match with Biff and see what happens. We'll have Eddie drop the title, and then he'll start a single run from there. Well, Biff really likes titles, and I don't know if it comes off as such, I don't know if it's apparent, but for him, the prospect of unifying the titles kind of became this idea of holding 2 titles, and him getting to walk around with shiny things, I think, was more than he could pass up. And so after he won that match, I don't think the titles were actually broken up, but they just kind of moved with whoever became the new world champion after that.
Yeah, we're talking about the hardcore title. It was an Ultraviolet title. I'm not really a big fan of hardcore wrestling, but if the promoter asked me to do something, I'm going to do it. And I wrestled Eddie Brock. I think we had a pretty decent match. It was a unification bout where if I lost, he would win the heavyweight title. If I won, I get the violent title. I went over, combined the titles together, and pretty much, I carried both belts around for a while, which I think it's a cool aspect. If you're a champion, kind of like how boxing does it. I kind of like the visual, wearing 2 belts, but I guess they wanted to get rid of the Ultraviolet title. I guess not a lot of people really wanted to do the hardcore stuff. Me, I guess I'm not a big fan of it, but if I'm asked to do it, I'll do it.